Welcome to the Explainer. All right, let's just dive right into it. Today, we're unpacking something literally every single one of us has dealt with at some point, and that is, what exactly happens when we just stop communicating honestly with our partners? When we let our own assumptions take the wheel, the results can be, well, they can be pretty catastrophic. Today, we're going to break down the anatomy of unspoken relationship insecurities, and we're using some truly wild, real-world source material to show you exactly how fast things can spiral totally out of control.
But first, I want to ask you a question, a slightly provocative one. What costs more, a secret surgery or a conversation you are just too afraid to have? Keep that in the back of your mind as we go through this. We are about to follow the incredible, sometimes hilarious, but honestly deeply painful journey of a woman named Chisom who chose the secret surgery route. As you'll see by the end of this explainer, the true psychological and financial stakes of just having an honest conversation are absolutely massive.
Section 1. The cost of silence.
It's really fascinating to look at how different people react to a lack of communication. First up, we have our main focus today, Chisom. Chisom's response to her insecurity was extreme overcompensation. She was fighting imaginary wars in her head, throwing out these impossible trap questions, and eventually, she got a secret surgery. But then we also have Simi, another case study from our source material. Simi's response was the exact opposite, extreme undercompensation. She completely ignored issues, she doggedly avoided conversations about her personal hygiene, and famously, she packed her husband's lunch in a dirty flask that actually had a cockroach leg in it. Yikes, right? Two totally opposite extremes, loud overcompensation and silent undercompensation, but both lead to the exact same destination, a total breakdown of trust.
Section 2. Chisom's Imaginary War. You guys, it all started at an office party. Chisom overheard some random stranger compliment a woman named Grace. Then she saw her husband, Femi, genuinely laugh, for maybe 2 seconds at something Grace said. That was it. That was the entire crime scene. Actually, scratch that. It wasn't even a crime scene. It was just a normal interaction. But in Chisom's mind, an all-out war had just been declared. Instead of just, talking to her husband about it, Chisom started cornering him with impossible trap questions. Stuff like, if Grace and I were drowning, who would you save? She was seeking validation through completely manufactured conflict, rather than risking the vulnerability of just admitting she felt insecure.
And you have to hear Femi's actual response, because it completely highlights why this communication style fails. When she hit him with the drowning question, he opted for neither. I would call for help. I'm not a strong swimmer. It is such a hilarious, panicked, deeply diplomatic answer from a guy who is just desperately trying to survive an interrogation he didn't even know he was in. But think about what this means in practice. Trap questions are the literal opposite of healthy communication. They don't invite honesty. They instantly trigger defense mechanisms. So now Femi is terrified of saying the wrong thing, and Chisom is left feeling even more insecure because she didn't get any real reassurance.
Section 3. Actions replacing honest words.
Check out how fast this whole situation escalated. We're talking a matter of weeks. In week 1, because she couldn't just use her words, Chisom started awkwardly stuffing small throw pillows and tightly rolled bath towels into her clothing just to test out a new, curvier look around the house, literally knocking over furniture as she walked by. By week 2, she's cornering him while he's brushing his teeth with those impossible trap questions we just talked about. And week 3, she bypassed communication entirely. She secretly transferred their shared savings to pay for a Brazilian butt lift, a BBL, while telling Femi she was just going to visit her mother.
So I really need to highlight this number, 18. This isn't just some random stat. This represents 18 full months of careful, disciplined savings for their future home that Chisom drained in a matter of minutes. But even more than the money, to put that into perspective, it represents all the precious time and shared dreams they sacrificed, simply because she couldn't bring herself to ask one simple, honest question after that office party.
And just to parallel this for a second, while Chisom was sneaking away to surgically alter her body and empty a bank account, Sime was refusing to have honest conversations with her husband Kunle about her depression and her household responsibilities. Her avoidance peaked when she blindly packed his lunch in that moldy flask with the cockroach leg. The fallout? Kunle was publicly embarrassed at work, finally snapped, hired a maid, and completely cut off Sime's allowance. The big takeaway here? When you replace words with actions, those actions are almost guaranteed to blow up in your face.
Section 4. The illusions shatter. Okay, so imagine this. Chisom is at home, recovering from this incredibly painful surgery, dealing with the judgmental side eyes of her landlord and neighbors, and she receives an invitation in the mail. It's for Grace's engagement party. Yeah, Chisholm shows up and discovers the crushing, undeniable truth. Grace, her imaginary arch-nemesis, had actually been in a quiet, happy, 3-year relationship with a coworker named Kuna. She had literally never looked at Femi as anything more than a brotherly coworker.
Chisom said something later that I think perfectly captures this entire mess. I fought an entire war against an opponent who was busy planning her own wedding. It completely encapsulates the turning point of this whole story. Chisom finally realized the sheer absurdity of her insecurity. She waged a grueling 3-week war, sacrificed her physical comfort, and torched a 1.5 years of savings to fight a woman who didn't even know she was on a battlefield. It's incredibly embarrassing for her, for sure, but it's an absolutely vital realization.
Section 5. Rebuilding through honest communication.
So, how in the world do you come back from that? Well, they used a really specific framework to rebuild. Step 1 required immense mental discipline from Chisom. She had to consciously stop the imaginary 2 a.m. wars in her head. When she felt insecure, she had to catch herself building those crazy narratives and just stop. Step 2, definitely the hardest part. She had to learn to ask plain, direct questions without hiding behind those traps. It was just about the raw, scary vulnerability of asking, "Hey, who is Grace to you?" And step 3 fell on Femi. He started proactively sharing the boring, small details of his day. He realized that leaving blanks in his stories was exactly what allowed Chisom's insecurity to fill them in with absolute worst-case scenarios.
The actual actionable steps Chisom took toward redemption here are just so brave. First, she gave a sincere, completely non-defensive apology to Femi, admitting that she was simply terrified to be vulnerable. That takes monumental courage, right? She also invited Grace out to a quiet lunch and just confessed everything: the pillows, the money, the surgery, the whole shebang. She pushed past that fear of rejection, and you know what happened? Instead of getting angry, Grace just laughed, and an unlikely friendship was actually born out of it. Finally, Chisom and Femi started a shared budget spreadsheet. Femi insisted on monitoring it, but it actually turned into this Sunday ritual they both looked forward to. It was a practical, literal exercise in rebuilding their trust, line by line.
Section 6. The ultimate relationship glow-up.
I absolutely love this piece of tough love from Mama Chisom, which she delivered to her daughter during her surgical recovery. She said, "Words are cheaper than surgery, and they heal pocket and heart at the same time." Such a good quote. And this wisdom applied to everyone in our source material. Even Saimei eventually dropped her defensive posture, willingly changed her habits, and successfully rebuilt her own hairdressing business. Both of these women learned the hard way that a true partnership requires facing hard truths head-on rather than avoiding them through extreme, chaotic actions.
So what does this all mean? Let's define the real relationship glow-up. It is not something you find on an operating table, and it is definitely not found in silent rebellion. The ultimate relationship glow-up is confidence built patiently from the inside, paired with honesty spoken openly out loud. It's the simple, far less painful decision to trust that the people who love you aren't secretly keeping score. Which leaves me with one final question for you today. Are you fighting a war in your head right now that your partner doesn't even know about? I really want you to think about that. Take a hard look at your own communication habits. Are you metaphorically stuffing pillows in your shirt, or are you actually asking the hard questions? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I highly encourage you to put down the imaginary sword and just go have the conversation. We'll see you next time.